The dining room smelled like coffee and betrayal. Dad cleared his throat, the sound cutting through the silence like a knife. "Caleb will inherit the house," he announced, his voice flat and final. Then his eyes landed on me. "You, Lena, will get nothing." The words hung in the air like smoke. My stepmother Marjorie sat in the corner, her lips curved in what she thought was a subtle smile. Caleb stared at his hands, suddenly fascinated by his own fingers. I felt my world tilt sideways, the room spinning around me. Years of caring for Mom, years of paying bills Dad ignored, years of putting my life on hold while Caleb partied through college. All of it meant nothing. My hands trembled under the table. Then they went still. I reached into my bag, slowly, deliberately. The envelope was yellowed with age, the paper soft from years in a safety deposit box. I slid it across the polished wood, right to the center of the table. "You might want to read this before you finish that sentence," I said quietly. Dad's jaw tightened. His face went pale, because he recognized his own signature at the bottom. Before I continue with what happened next, I want to thank you for listening to my story. Drop a comment letting me know where you're tuning in from. I'd love to know who's sharing this journey with me today. My name is Lena Fairmont, and until that moment, I thought my father still loved me. I grew up in a small town where everyone knew everyone's business. Our house sat at the end of Maple Street, a 2-story with blue shutters and a garden Mom tended like it was her 5th child. The kitchen always smelled like fresh bread on Sundays. Mom would hum while she cooked, and Dad would read the paper at the table, and everything felt safe. Then Mom got sick. Cancer moved through her body like wildfire. Within 6 months, she was gone. I was 23, fresh out of college, with a degree I never got to use. Caleb was 19 and useless, drowning his grief in beer and late nights with friends. Dad changed too. The warmth in his eyes disappeared. He stopped reading the paper at breakfast. He stopped talking to me altogether, really, just grunted responses and cold stares. Caleb became the son Dad orbited around, the golden boy who could do no wrong, and I became the shadow nobody noticed. Mom's last words to me came on a Tuesday. The hospice room was small and smelled like disinfectant trying to cover up death. She gripped my hand with surprising strength, her eyes fierce despite the pain. "Promise me you'll protect this home," she whispered, her voice cracking. "It's ours, Lena, not his to give away. Promise me." I promised. I didn't understand what she meant then, but I promised anyway. After the funeral, I kept that promise. I worked 2 jobs, waitressing during the day and bartending at night. The property taxes Dad ignored, I paid them. The mortgage payment he forgot, I covered it. The repairs the house desperately needed, I handled those too. I believed family loyalty meant something. I believed if I just tried hard enough, worked hard enough, sacrificed enough, Dad would see me again. Really see me. I was wrong. But Mom knew. Even dying, she knew what was coming. She tried to warn me. Dad remarried 6 months after Mom died. 6 months. Marjorie swept into our lives like she owned the place before the ink dried on the marriage certificate. She was elegant in a cold way, with perfect makeup and designer clothes that seemed out of place in our small town. Her smile never reached her eyes. "I'm so glad to finally have a daughter," she told me the first time we met, gripping my shoulders with manicured nails. But her eyes said something different. They said, "You're in my way." Within 2 weeks, Mom's portraits disappeared from the living room walls. "They make the space feel cluttered," Marjorie explained, waving her hand dismissively. "We need to move forward, not dwell in the past." The floral couch Mom loved, replaced with sleek leather. The kitchen curtains she sewed by hand, gone, replaced with cold metal blinds. Even the garden started dying because Marjorie didn't have time for hobbies. She moved through the house like an eraser, removing every trace of my mother. The erasure didn't stop with furniture.
I came home one day to find my room repainted. The soft yellow Mom had chosen was covered in stark gray. My childhood photos were packed in boxes and shoved in the attic. "I thought you'd like a more mature space," Marjorie said sweetly. Mom's quilt, the one she spent 3 years making, disappeared. "Oh, that old thing?" Marjorie asked when I asked. "I donated it. It was falling apart anyway." "It wasn't. I'd kept it pristine." "You should be grateful you still live here," she added, her voice sharp beneath the sugar coating. "Most girls your age have moved out by now." I bit my tongue. This was my home, long before it was hers. But Dad said nothing. He sat in his chair, watching TV, pretending not to hear my protests. When I pushed harder, he finally looked at me. "Marjorie's trying to make this place her own. Stop being difficult." That's when I realized I'd already lost him. Caleb breezed through life like consequences didn't exist. He'd drop by the house twice a month, usually needing money or a place to crash after some party went wrong. Dad's whole face would light up when Caleb walked through the door. They'd sit together watching football, laughing at jokes I wasn't included in. "How's school, son?" Dad would ask, even though Caleb had dropped out sophomore year. "Great, Dad, really great," Caleb would lie, and Dad would beam. I overheard him once talking on the phone to his friends. "Yeah, Dad says the house is mine one day. I'm set for life, bro." He laughed, that careless sound that made my stomach turn. I thought he was exaggerating, being dramatic. Caleb always was. But he wasn't joking. And somewhere deep down, I think I already knew that. Dad had chosen his heir, and it wasn't me. The first real betrayal came on a Tuesday morning. I found a property tax notice on the kitchen counter, red letters screaming "Final Notice." My heart dropped. If we didn't pay within 10 days, the county would start foreclosure proceedings. I grabbed my purse and drove straight to the county office. I paid the full amount, $3,000, nearly emptying my savings account. The clerk gave me a receipt and a concerned look. "You should set up automatic payments," she suggested. When I got home, Dad was in the kitchen with Caleb. "Thanks for handling that tax situation, son," Dad said, clapping Caleb on the shoulder. "Don't know what I'd do without you." Caleb shifted uncomfortably. Our eyes met for a second. He knew. He knew it was my money, my effort, my sacrifice. But he accepted the praise anyway. "No problem, Dad," he mumbled. I stood in the doorway, invisible. Neither of them even glanced my way. Late one night, I couldn't sleep. The house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the creak of old floorboards. I got up for water and heard voices in the kitchen. Marjorie was whispering, but walls in old houses are thin. "The deed needs to be transferred before she finds out," she said, her tone urgent. Dad's response was quieter but clear enough. "She doesn't need to know anything. It's better this way." My blood turned to ice. I pressed myself against the hallway wall, barely breathing. "What if she asks questions?" Marjorie continued. "She won't. Lena's too passive. She'll accept whatever we tell her." The words cut deeper than any knife. Too passive, like I was a doormat they could wipe their feet on forever. I went back to my room silently. My hands were shaking as I sat on the edge of my bed. That night, something inside me changed. I decided I would find out. Whatever they were hiding, I would uncover it. I started searching the next day. I checked Dad's study when he was at work, carefully going through drawers and file cabinets. Nothing. I looked through the mail, scanning every envelope before Marjorie could intercept it. Still nothing concrete. Then I remembered Mom's safety deposit box at First National. She'd shown me once, years ago, telling me the key was hidden in her jewelry box. "Just in case," she'd said, tapping her nose like we shared a secret. I found the key exactly where she'd left it, tucked in a small velvet pouch beneath her pearl necklace. The metal was cold in my palm. At the bank, the clerk checked my identification twice. "This box hasn't been opened since 2019, she said, frowning. "Are you sure you have authorization?" "I'm her daughter. She gave me the key." The clerk hesitated, then led me to the vault. Inside the safety deposit box was a single manila envelope. My hands trembled as I opened it. Papers slid out onto the small table, and I recognized Mom's handwriting immediately. Last will and testament of Rebecca Ann Fairmont. I'd never seen this before. Dad had told us Mom's will was destroyed in a small fire in his office years ago. He said she left everything to me, standard stuff. But this document told a different story. Mom had left the house to me. Every single word was clear and legal. The property, the savings account, even her jewelry collection. All of it was mine, signed and notarized 5 years before she died. There was a note paper clipped to the will in Mom's shaky handwriting. Lena, if you're reading this, it means your father didn't honor my wishes. I'm sorry. Protect what's yours. I sat in that vault and cried. Not sad tears, angry ones. Because my father knew. He'd always known, and he'd hidden the truth for years. I drove home with the will locked in my purse, my mind racing with confrontation speeches. I'd burst through the door and throw the papers in Dad's face. I'd demand explanations. I'd make him admit what he'd done. But when I pulled into the driveway, I heard laughter through the open windows. I walked to the window and looked inside. Dad, Caleb, and Marjorie were in the living room, champagne glasses raised. To Caleb's future home, Marjorie announced, and they all clinked glasses. Caleb grinned. Can't believe it's really mine. Dad smiled wider than I'd seen in years. You've earned it, son. My hand was on the doorknob, ready to storm in, but something stopped me. Maybe it was Mom's voice in my head. Maybe it was pure survival instinct. Bursting in now would just give them time to prepare. They'd lawyer up, create stories, close ranks against me. I needed them to bury themselves first. The next morning, I called my friend Tyler from college. He'd become a lawyer, specializing in estate law. We met at a coffee shop across town where nobody would recognize us. Tyler read through Mom's will carefully, his expression growing darker with each page. This is airtight. Signed, notarized, witnesses present. Your mother's intent is crystal clear. Can Dad fight it? I asked. He can try, but he won't win. The problem is proving he knew about it and intentionally hid it. That's fraud. How do I prove that? Tyler leaned back in his chair. You need evidence. Documents, recordings, witnesses. Let them think they've won. Let them get comfortable. People get careless when they think they're safe. He slid a small recording device across the table. North Carolina is a one-party consent state. If you're part of the conversation, you can record it legally. I picked up the device. It was smaller than a pack of gum. Play this smart, Lena, Tyler warned. Let them bury themselves. I went home and announced I was moving out. Dad looked up from his newspaper, surprised. Where will you go? I found an apartment across town, I lied smoothly. It's time I got my own place. You're right, Marjorie. Most girls my age don't live with their parents. Marjorie's smile was genuine for the first time ever. How mature of you. I'm sure you'll be much happier. Dad actually seemed relieved. I'll help you look for furniture this weekend. That's okay. I want to do this on my own. Over the next week, I started packing boxes loudly, making a big show of preparing to leave. I'd actually rented a storage unit, not an apartment, but they didn't need to know that. The whole time I was recording everything. Casual conversations, whispered exchanges. Every time they mentioned the house or Caleb's inheritance, the device in my pocket captured it. They thought I'd accepted defeat. That made them bold. 2 weeks later, Dad called me into his study. Before you go, I need you to sign something, he said, sliding a document across his desk. It's just a formality, a release of claim on the property. I read through it carefully. The legal language basically said I had no interest in the house and wouldn't contest any decisions regarding it. Why do I need to sign this? I asked, keeping my voice innocent. It's standard procedure, makes things cleaner for estate planning. I pretended to hesitate. I don't know, Dad. His expression hardened. Lena, I'm trying to be fair here. You'll get some money when I pass, but the house needs to go to Caleb. He's the man of the family. The recorder in my pocket was running. My phone was propped on the bookshelf across the room, camera pointed right at us. I signed the paper with a pen he provided. "There," Dad said, satisfied. "Now she can't touch the house." His words were caught on both devices. Perfect. I didn't plan what happened next. Sometimes luck just works in your favor. I called Caleb to say goodbye before my move. We met for coffee, and I accidentally, on purpose, left my phone on the table with a voice memo playing on low volume. It was a recording from 2 nights ago, Dad and Marjorie discussing how they'd handled the Lena situation and secured the house for Caleb. Dad's voice was clear. She signed away any claim. We're in the clear now. Caleb's face went white. "Lena, is that—" "Oh no, sorry," I said, grabbing the phone quickly. "Wrong audio file." But the damage was done. I saw doubt creep into Caleb's eyes for the first time ever. "Dad really cut you out? Completely?" "It's fine," I said, smiling sadly. He made his choice. Caleb was quiet the rest of our meeting. The golden boy's shine was starting to tarnish. 3 weeks later, Caleb got arrested for a DUI. Dad bailed him out immediately, furious but protective. "Everyone makes mistakes," he told Caleb in the police station lobby. I only knew because Tyler had a contact who fed him information. But Marjorie wasn't so forgiving. "Maybe the house should be in my name instead," she suggested at dinner that night, just until Caleb gets his life together. Dad's face went red. "We had an agreement." "Agreements change," Marjorie shot back. Their first real fight happened that night. I heard about it from a neighbor who loved to gossip. Apparently, Marjorie had threatened to leave unless Dad put her name on the deed too. The cracks were forming. The perfect little family was falling apart, and I hadn't even played my final card yet. Dad received an envelope at his office on a Thursday. Inside were photos, high-quality prints showing him signing documents in his study, timestamps visible, transcripts of his conversations with Marjorie about transferring the deed and keeping me in the dark. No return address, no note, just evidence. Dad came home that night looking like he'd seen a ghost. He demanded to know if Caleb had been recording him. Caleb swore he hadn't. Marjorie accused Caleb of selling them out. Caleb accused her of trying to steal his inheritance. The house became a war zone. Nobody trusted anyone anymore. And none of them suspected quiet, passive Lena, who'd already moved out and accepted her fate. I watched from a distance, waiting. Paranoia is a powerful weapon. The family meeting was Dad's idea. "We need to clear the air," he announced via text to me and Caleb. "Sunday afternoon. Everyone needs to be there." I knew what this was. The final declaration, the official announcement that would cut me out forever. He wanted witnesses, closure, finality. I spent Saturday organizing my evidence. Mom's will in a leather folder, the signed release form I'd been coerced into signing, the recordings transcribed and highlighted, photos printed and labeled. Everything Tyler and I had compiled over 2 months. I practiced my speech in the mirror. Not angry, not emotional, just factual. Sunday morning, I dressed carefully. Simple clothes, minimal makeup. I wanted to look calm, composed, unshakable. Tyler texted me, "You've got this. The truth is on your side." I drove to the house one last time, the folder on my passenger seat. The stage was set. We're back where we started. The dining room, the coffee smell, the tension thick enough to choke on. "Dad will inherit the house," Dad said, his voice carrying that false authority. "You, Lena, will get nothing." I slid Mom's will across the table. "Then you should probably explain why Mom's signature is on this," I said quietly, "and yours from 15 years ago, acknowledging you received and read her last wishes." Dad's hand froze halfway to the document. His face went from confident to pale in seconds. Caleb grabbed the will and started reading. His eyes got wider with each paragraph. "Dad, this says Lena gets everything." Marjorie snatched it from his hands. "This is fake. It has to be." It's notarized by the same notary who handled your wedding paperwork, Marjorie. Want to call and verify? Dad finally found his voice. Where did you get this? Mom's safety deposit box, the one you told me was empty. The room exploded. Caleb was on his feet, waving the will. You told me this place was yours to give. You said Mom left everything to you. Dad's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Son, I can explain. Explain what? That you've been lying for years? That you made me think I had a future here when it was never yours to promise? Marjorie grabbed her purse. I'm not staying for this circus. Sit down, I said, and something in my voice made her freeze. We're not done. I pulled out the recordings, transcripts printed on clean white paper. Here's where Dad says she doesn't need to know anything. Here's where you planned to transfer the deed illegally. Here's where Dad admits he hid Mom's will intentionally.
Every page I laid down felt like a hammer blow. Dad's face went from pale to gray. Lena, please, he whispered. We can work this out. But I was done pleading. Tyler walked in right on cue, carrying a briefcase. Mr. Fairmont, I'm Tyler Morrison, Lena's attorney, he said formally. This has already been filed with the county clerk and the probate court. The house is legally Lena's property as of this morning. Dad stood up so fast his chair fell over. You can't do this. Actually, she can. Your daughter followed every legal channel. The will is valid. Your fraud is documented. If you contest this, we'll pursue criminal charges for fraud and theft. Marjorie grabbed Dad's arm. Tell me you didn't know about that will. Dad's silence was answer enough. You used me, Marjorie hissed. You made me an accomplice in your scheme. I was protecting Caleb, Dad shouted. No, I said quietly. You were protecting your ego. You couldn't stand that Mom chose me over you. That broke him. Dad sank into his chair, suddenly looking 20 years older. Lena, please, don't do this. You already did it, Dad, 5 years ago when you hid Mom's will. I'm just correcting your mistakes. The house emptied quickly after that. Marjorie filed for divorce within a week. She'd married Dad for security, not love, and a man who'd committed fraud wasn't secure anymore. She moved back to her sister's place in Atlanta, taking half of Dad's savings with her. Caleb got his own apartment, a tiny studio he could barely afford. He stopped talking to Dad completely. Occasionally, he'd drive by the house late at night. I saw his car once, parked across the street, headlights off. He never knocked. Dad moved into a small rental near his work. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. The authority he'd carried like armor was gone, replaced by shame he couldn't hide. I stayed quiet through everything. No gloating posts on social media, no announcements to the extended family. I just let the truth speak for itself. People talked anyway. Small towns always do. But nobody pitied me anymore. I stood in Mom's garden on a Saturday morning in April, the deed to the house in my hands. The paper felt heavier than it should, weighted with years of grief and anger, and finally, peace. The garden was overgrown, weeds choking Mom's rose bushes. I spent the whole day clearing it, pulling weeds until my hands were dirty and my back ached. It felt like therapy. By sunset, the roses were breathing again. I planted new flowers along the border, the same kind Mom used to love, daisies and black-eyed Susans. I didn't take it from them, I said out loud, talking to Mom's memory. I just took back what was always mine. A neighbor waved from across the street. Garden's looking beautiful, Lena. Thanks. I'm just getting started. My revenge wasn't rage. It was a restoration. Caleb showed up on a Thursday evening, 3 months after the meeting. I almost didn't answer the door, but something in his knock sounded different, softer, uncertain. He stood on the porch, looking nothing like the golden boy Dad had worshipped. His hair needed cutting, his clothes were wrinkled, his eyes were red. Can we talk? He asked.
I let him in. We sat in the living room, the same room where Dad had celebrated Caleb's future home months ago. You were right, Caleb said finally. About everything. Dad used both of us, just in different ways. He made me think I was special, but it was all manipulation. I know. I'm sorry, Lena, for taking credit for paying the taxes, for accepting praise I didn't earn, for believing I deserved this place more than you. His voice cracked. I was blind. I believed him. Real regret sounds different than performance. I forgive you, I said, but I can't save you, Caleb. You have to figure out your own life now. He nodded, tears streaming down his face. I know. He left quietly, and I watched him drive away. For once, the roles were reversed. He was lost, and I was free. The renovation took 6 months. I repainted every room, choosing colors Mom would have loved. Soft yellows and warm blues. I refinished the hardwood floors, planted a new garden, and replaced the cold metal blinds with curtains I sewed myself. I hung Mom's portraits back on the walls, right where they belonged. Her quilt, which I'd tracked down at a thrift store, returned to my bed. I installed a small plaque by the front door. For Mom, who taught me to stand tall. Dad drove by once. I saw his car slow down, saw him staring at the house with an expression I couldn't read. Regret, maybe, or just sadness. I didn't wave. I didn't go outside. I just watched him drive away. The sunset painted the sky orange and pink, the kind of sky Mom used to call God showing off. I sat on the porch with a cup of tea, breathing in the smell of fresh flowers and new paint. I'd won, not through cruelty or revenge, but through truth, through refusing to be erased, through honoring the woman who'd loved me enough to protect me, even after death. The house was mine, the peace was mine, the future was mine. And I wasn't going anywhere.